name is Nerijus. I'm a product manager for the Baltics. And today I would like to talk to you about one quite interesting topic. It's hybrid wheats. And I will try to answer the main question, how to reveal the genetic potential of hybrid wheat. So let's begin from the hybridization in general. What is this and what it gives for us and for the farmers? Hybridization is the cross-breeding of two genetically different varieties or species, and as a result we are getting hybrids which has a combination of parameters, of features from both parent lines. And mainly when we are talking about hybrids, we are talking about so-called heterosis effect, which makes hybrids different from the line varieties. Saaten-Union technology called Croissor 100, and basically all the varieties which are in the market in Europe are made using this technology, and it gives a quite fast breeding progress, which leads to new high-performing varieties. And the hybrids has a very high level of hybridization rate, and of course the seed availability is secured. So let's move on to this heterosis effect, what it is and what it gives to the hybrids. This effect increases the performance, which contributes to the increase of yield stability, stress tolerance, which is very important in the background of climate change. And as you know, every year we have quite hot summers and we have droughts. So this stress tolerance is quite important feature. And of course, hybrid wheats has a difference in external appearance. First of all, the root system of the hybrid wheat is developed very well. It penetrates very deep in soil layers. It can absorb all the nutritional elements from deeper soil layers, and it develops strong leaves. It has thick stems, which leads to high biomass. And talking about ears and 1,000 grain weight, hybrid wheat normally has a higher 1,000 grain weight. And one of the main features, main difference when we are talking about hybrid wheats is tillering capacity. Hybrids has a huge tillering capacity, which leads us to adaptation of growing technology. In this slide, we can clearly see the development of breeding. Here we can see the data from official registration trials from Germany from 2011 up to 2020. And here we can compare not only the development of hybrid breeding, but also the development of conventional varieties breeding. So as you can see, the regression line goes up slightly year by year, and we can see the difference, the gap between yield, relative yield between hybrids and conventional varieties, which is approximately 5–6%. And it's still growing. And hybrids has an advantage in resistance. Here we can see data from official trials where we can see the difference in untreated variations, and in all year hybrids has a higher yield when there is no fungicides or growth regulators used. And here is the main slide which answers the question why we should grow hybrid wheat. So here you can see the data from 370 trials. And the gray line shows the rainfall in millimeters in April, May, and June. And blue column is conventional varieties, and green column is hybrids. And as you can see, every year hybrids performs better, I mean yield-wise. And I would like to pay your attention to 2011. In this year, there was a huge drought and quite big deficiency of rainfall in my mentioned month. And here we can see the gap between yield of conventional varieties and hybrids increased significantly. When in normal years we have a difference in yield approximately 6-7 decitones from 1 hectare, in 2011, when we had that drought, this difference went up to almost 12 decitones from 1 hectare. So it proves that this heterosis effect shows his best performance when there are unfavorable conditions for the wheat to grow. Another difference comparing hybrids with conventional varieties are that hybrids has a more productive years. Normally, hybrids develops 12 grains per 1 year more comparing with conventional varieties. And it means that hybrids has quite a huge compensation factor. One of the biggest difference between line and hybrids is the root system. As I already mentioned, hybrids develops a very huge root system which penetrates deep in the soil, and it helps for the plants to overcome those quite tough periods when there's the lack of rainfall, for example, or there's a heat waves as we had this last season. This root system, as I mentioned, helps to uptake the water from very deep soil layers. It helps to absorb all the nutritional elements from the soil and use it efficiently. And the plants at the end are more robust and vital. And the main difference for hybrid wheat is they has a huge tillering capacity. When the line varieties normally forms or develops 3-4 additional tillers, hybrids has 10-12, in best case it could develop up to 20 additional tillers in one plant. So it has a huge tillering capacity, which allows us to reduce the sowing rate and to have the same results at the end with the lower sowing rate and lower population in the field. But unfortunately, hybrid wheat has some challenges. Unlike cross-pollinating species such as maize, rapeseed, hybrid rye, the breeding of hybrid wheat is still in its infancy. But why it's so tricky? It's because the genome of the wheat is incredibly big, while the genome of human has approximately 3 billion DNA letters. Common wheat has more than 16 billion DNA letters. So this huge and complex genome is one of the reasons why the establishment of hybrid wheat breeding is much slower. And in addition of that, wheat is a self-pollinating species, which means that self-pollination and fertilization take mainly place in the closed flower. So only a small amount of pollens is released to the outside. So here we are to the main question of this presentation. how to reveal the potential of hybrid wheat. So it's very important to understand that the effect of heterosis can be supported by adapted technology. So in this case, we can get the most from the heterosis. And the main points in the technology where we should pay more attention or where we should change something is sowing rate, sowing time, sowing depth, weed control, and nitrogen application. So let's move on to the sowing rate. The huge tillering capacity of hybrid wheat allows us to reduce the sowing rate down to 150-175 kernels per square meter. Here we have the data from our private trials, which we had last year in 2021. It was established in Lithuania and Estonia. And here we can see 3 different hybrids with different sowing rates and a line variety. So the tendency shows that when we reduce the sowing rate down to 150, we are getting almost the same yield, or in some cases much higher yield than using 175, the higher sowing rate. And comparing with line variety, we have bigger yield in all varieties where we have a hybrid wheat. The most farmers can be worried about the low plant density in the fields after winter time, but it's totally normal. And if the plant population is more than 110 plants per square meter, it's totally normal, and there's no need to worry about. If the plant population is between 90 and 100 plants per square meter, you should pay more attention to the first nitrogen application, just to speed up the vegetation renewal and increase tillering in the spring. And if there are less than 90 plants per square meter, you should contact our colleagues, our local colleagues, for additional consultation. Another topic is more preventional. It's sowing depth. You should not sow the seeds too deep in order not to lose the tillering capacity. And of course, sowing time. We need to be sure that the hybrid wheat will have enough time in autumn to develop enough of additional tillers, and in this way we are not losing the productivity. And of course, when we are sowing earlier, we can reduce sowing rate even more. Weed control, because of low sowing rate, autumn herbicide is highly recommended, and nitrogen applications. There is no need to increase the nitrogen inputs. But first, starting nitrogen input early in the spring is highly recommended, just as I mentioned, to speed up the vegetation and increase the tillering. And due to protein dilution in yield, an input at the very start of earing is useful to get a higher protein rate. But of course, if there are favorable conditions, climate conditions. And here I just wanted to show that we are still running and still continuing our trials with the hybrids. And here we have in Lithuania, we have established a hybrid wheat trial in Plungė trial station, and it calls sowing time and sowing density influence to the yield of hybrid wheat. We have a few different hybrids, which was sown in 3 different sowing rates, and we sown them in 2 different sowing times, early sowing and optimal sowing. And here on this left picture, we can see that when we are sowing hybrids on optimal for the conventional varieties sowing time, the difference between hybrids and line varieties, it's not so big. You can barely see a difference. But when we are sowing hybrids earlier, the difference seen very well. Here you can see that hybrids has already at the beginning of development has much bigger root system, and because it has a huge tillering capacity, hybrids already starts to develop additional tillers. And on the right picture, which was taken on 17th of December 2021, the hybrid, the difference between line and hybrids also could be seen very well in early sowing variation. The line variety in this case has 3-4 stems, and the hybrids already has 8-9 stems. So thank you for your attention, and if you have questions, please contact our local managers.